Yeah, so hello everyone. So I think I will start sharing a little bit first, and then I will hand it to Nam. And during that time, so if anyone have any questions, so put it in the chat box and the Q&A. So I will let everyone to go in gradually. Yes, so thank you so much for being here today as you join the special global expert chat with the topics insights into the invincible companies. So I hope that you are all doing well and staying safe and healthy, especially during this tough time in Vietnam where the COVID is quite spread out. And so before doing the webinar, so I would love to introduce a bit about Trimlex and why we are doing this. So Trimlex is the workplace experience providers. It's where you can find the best of both worlds, when you can have your private, branded, and professional office, but also the service, engaging and flexible workplace. And currently, we have 5 existing locations and 3 upcoming locations, which are in 𝐤𝐸𝐏𝐤𝐬 and 𝐤𝐸𝐿, so to be launched at the end of this month or the early of next year. And so in Trimlex, so we care a lot about the workplace experience. So it's not only including the space and hospitality and business care, but also some events and some experience and programs that we organize monthly, which are including social community events, creative workshop, professional development, mental well-being, and also we have one of the kind is the future code, which we are using to improve the employee experience. So we have this program to take care of the HR community and business leader in the programs, as we know that those are the ones who face the most difficult problem. And also we want to become a bridge between the industry expert and the HR community or business leader, so that you guys can have different perspective and insights for your teams to develop about the engagement and development. So this is one of the example. So at first, when I first contact Mr. Yves, so I asked him to join employee experience monthly global expert chat, but actually, he has wide knowledge. That's the reason why I want to expand it to all over, for the business leader, for CEO and founder, so they can know how to build a sustainable organization. And also because talking about a business, so that's the reason why I invite Mr. Nam to join with me and to be as a host for today, so he can have the discussion with Mr. Yves, based on the Vietnamese market, to talk about the how to build an invincible company. Yeah, so I would love to hand it back to Mr. Nam to introduce a bit about himself and about our guest speaker for today.
Thank you, Mia, so much. Hello, everybody. Hello. I'm Nam. I'm the CEO and co-founder of 𝐘𝐯𝐿, a coaching and consulting company with a mission to help extraordinary people to achieve impossible goals. It's really an honor for me to be here to host this webinar together with Mr. Yves, the famous author of the business model canvas. But before we start, I really like us all of us to spend just a few seconds to think about all our friends and relatives who are infected and negatively impacted by COVID at the moment, and really wish them recover well, and I strongly believe that we go through this together. I wish you all stay safe and stay healthy. Now, back about this webinar. I'm after working in the corporate for 25 years, and recently, as I move in the startup, I understand I feel very resonant with the challenges that all the CEO or the business owner of startup has to face when the environment is very challenging, all the changes happening. So this is one, how do we manage the existing business? And then we think about how to scale up, how can we be flexible? So those are the challenges that I feel very clearly coming out from the very big corporate world to the startup world. And the challenge I see is it at both ends. So that's number one. Number two, I love simple stuff. And then that is why me asked me to come to host this event. I say yes without thinking whether I can do it or not. Because really for me, the business model canvas is something, is a tool. I think it's the simplest tool I have ever seen when it talk about something on strategy, development, and execution. So with that, I'd like to introduce you, Mr. Yves Pigneur, a professor from Lausanne University, and together with his partner Alex, he co-invented the business model canvas. It's we just now we talked. Yves told me that they start work together 20 years ago. But the book that you see there on the screen was published like 12 years ago. And if you look at the wall behind Professor Yves right now, this is the room where he, together with his partner Alex, developed the business canvas model. So Alex and Yves are ranked as number 4 among the Thinkers50 most influential management thinkers in the world. And currently he holds the award that according to a Financial Times, it's like the Oscar of the management thinking. And his model is widely used among the big companies like Procter & Gamble, Amazon, Tesla, and some others. So I'm so pleased to introduce to you, to all of us here today, Professor Yves Pigneur from Lausanne University. Please, Yves.
Okay, thank you. Wait a minute, just launching the slides. It's okay?
Yeah, we see the slide clearly.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. It's nice to be with you this morning for me, this afternoon for you. And I will try to share with you some idea related to what we call the Invincible Company. Based on the recent crisis, we could have called the Resilient Company. And I will try to explain. As you just mentioned, with Alex, we are creators of visual tools. And we started to work together more than 20 years ago. And the first tool we developed so far was the business model canvas that I think most of you, I guess, know. And so I will try to explain a little bit first this model as a short reminder. The business model canvas, the idea I had in my mind was to ask 9 questions to entrepreneurs or small companies or big companies. The idea is to first start with the value proposition. In this case, I will illustrate it with a company called 𝐤𝐸𝐿𝐻, who manufacture and sells high quality tools for builders. So the customers are the builders or the building companies. And so here you have the customer segment, and in the middle you have the value proposition. Then for reaching those customers, you use channels, distribution channels. In this case, it's a sales force with representatives and shops. And the relationship, which is here, is the relationship you try to maintain with your customers. Could be anonymous, could be highly emotional, could be based mainly on acquiring new customers. So in this case, it's a direct one-to-one relationship where the representatives try to keep the relation with the customers, the builders, the building companies. And here in the bottom, you have the revenue streams. In this case, is purely transactional. We will see. We will come back on this model a little bit later. That's the right-hand side. Here we call that the front stage because all the components, the customers can see them. And just behind the scene, if you want, backstage, we have first the main activity. In this case, is manufacturing and selling the tools. To do or to manufacture and sell, they have some resources, factories, physical resources, patents, intangible resources. And sometimes you need to have some partners, strategic partners. They have some subcontractors for building some components of their tools. And when you know the partners, the activities, and the resources, you have an idea of the cost structure. In this case, the most important costs are related to the manufacturing and the selling or distribution. This is the first tool we developed, one page for describing the business model of a company. Could be a startup, a medium company, a small company, or a big one. What we have seen recently is when those tools are used inside existing company, it's a little bit more difficult for them because they have to manage two different things. And I will try to explain. But before that, I would like to mention what we have in mind when we call the Invincible Company. For us, an Invincible Company has mainly three characteristics. The first one, they are able to constantly reinvent themselves. Second, they are able to compete on superior business models and not only on product or services or technology. And finally, they are able sometimes to transcend industry boundaries, meaning they are able to go outside the traditional sector of activity. And I think those three characteristics is also good to be resilient in face of crisis or medium or small or big crisis. Before to go further, let me visit what's the typical journey of a startup. First, you have an idea, then you try to design, you search, you test, and you try to search the right business model. And for doing it, you have the tools that I briefly mentioned, the business model canvas, the value proposition canvas, the lean startups approach, and so on. When you found the business model, you launch and you try to exploit, means you try to survive, to grow, scale up. Okay. But for an existing company, the story is a little bit different. Why? Because they are mainly focused on exploiting existing business model, most of the time several ones because of the history of the company. Okay, so this one is mainly for existing company, but they still have to consider the exploration of new business model, just maybe for replacing some business model declining. So the question for them is, you need to be good in exploration and exploitation. We call those ambidextrous organization. For startups, it's mainly based here. For existing one is there, but they need to sometimes to consider exploration. And for startups, after 1, 2, 3 years, since they are exploiting, they have to consider something on this stage. That's the reason why we came with a new tool that we call the portfolio map or business model portfolio. The idea was to visualize, to analyze, to manage different businesses, the businesses that you are exploiting or exploring. And the short video that I will present you, 3 minutes video, will briefly explain this new concept.
Everything starts with an idea. Even the largest companies were once startups searching for a business model. When startups find their model, they scale and transform it into a mature company. They shift from an entrepreneurial mindset to a managerial mindset. We call these two fundamentally different worlds explore and exploit. Companies must manage both at the same time, a portfolio of existing businesses and a portfolio of new opportunities. The exploit portfolio helps you manage what you have by looking at the return on the one hand and the death and disruption risk on the other. Here you scale emerging business models, renovate declining ones, or make successful ones more resilient. You bolster your exploit portfolio with the following portfolio actions. Bring in outside business models through acquisitions, mergers, partnerships, or investments. Improve existing business models, shifting them from outdated to superior models. Remove business models that don't fit your strategy through divestitures or by dismantling them altogether. Yet, managing what you have is not enough in times of disruption. Even the best business models expire like a yogurt in the fridge. Avoid obsolescence and proactively develop and explore a portfolio of bold initiatives. Your search for growth engines requires two main activities. Increase the expected return by designing better business models. Reduce the innovation risk through rigorous testing. Adapt ideas based on evidence from the field until a value proposition and business model emerge. You manage your Explorer portfolio with the following portfolio actions. Ideate and test your own business model and value proposition ideas, or invest in outside ventures, or do both. Once you start testing ideas with experiments, the evidence will suggest the path. Persevere and gather stronger evidence. Pivot and adapt the idea a little or a lot. Retire it entirely because the evidence indicates it won't work. To scale a tested and de-risked idea, transfer it to your exploit portfolio or spin it out if it doesn't fit your strategy. When in exploration, know that you can't pick the winner. Early on, good and bad ideas are indistinguishable. The only way to truly identify the winners is by investing small amounts of money in a large number of projects. Retire ideas that can't produce evidence and invest in those showing traction. Want a larger return? You'll need more projects in your innovation funnel. Use the portfolio map to visualize, analyze, and manage your portfolio of existing and new business.
Okay, so it was the idea to present briefly this portfolio. And the agenda for today, I will first come back on some example of this portfolio, briefly present this one and this one afterwards. But for startups, you will see it's mainly related to those techniques, business model patterns and shift patterns, and I will try to present those ones. So let me first start with the portfolio map and first the exploit portfolio. As you heard, we have two axes, the real impact or the return if you want, and the risk of disruption. So when you have several business models inside an existing company, could be a small or medium or big one, the most contributing business model is here and the less risky. Okay, so what you try to do at this stage is to improve. For startups, improving means that, okay, you launch and after 1, 2, 3 years, because of your environment, you want to change something, you want to improve the existing business model. I didn't choose a startup today. I choose a company called Logitech. I'm sure that you know this company because you use the mice or the gaming consoles or the music headsets, I don't know. Here you can see Bracken Darrell, the CEO of the company for the last 6 years, and they wanted to become a leading cloud peripheral player. So here you can see the 5 different business models they have inside this company: productivity, which is related to computer, gaming console and so on, music headset. On this axis is the return. So it means here it's a huge return, 1 billion here, it's a medium return. And on this axis means that smart, which is related to domotics, it's maybe a problem because they decline in the last couple of years. They declined in the last couple of years. The idea, they try to improve those business models, smart ones and music ones. They had some action recently. They divested, for example, Lifesize, which is a special video system, and they created a spin-off. And they also acquired companies, Cytec, Astro for reinforcing gaming, Streamlabs, and also they acquired, and maybe you know it, Blue and Jaybird for reinforcing the music business model, and they kept the name. They kept the Blue and Jaybird, even if it belongs to the exploit portfolio. Okay, stop here because it's much related to existing company. I will now focus a little bit more on the exploration, which is mainly the role of startups or new ventures inside existing company. For the explore portfolio, you try to invent something new. So the traditional journey, you try to reduce the risk, maybe to increase the return that you could have with this business model. Sometimes it doesn't work, and so maybe you try to pivot your business model. So the actions that you can take, okay, you have some ideas, you brainstorm and so on. Then you can persevere if everything goes well, is going well. Sometimes you need to pivot, to change your business models. And maybe you could decide to stop, to kill this project and to launch another one. And if everything goes well, so you are able to push this business model, having reduced the risk enough, you decide to launch and maybe to incorporate this company and so on. Okay. So the main activities you have to manage this export portfolio is two things. First, you design something. You try to design a business model using the business model canvas, value proposition canvas, using design thinking techniques, brainstorming, ideation, prototyping, assessing, and so on. Then, when you have a business model, you have to go out of the building and test your business model. This is the lean startups approach. You try to detect the main hypothesis, you experiment, then you learn something. The idea is to reduce the risk. And the process is, okay, you design, then you test, you design, you test. If you're able to go further, you are here, you push this, you reduce the risk. This is a very iterative processes, as we have seen it with the squirrel at the beginning. Okay. Testing, using the lean startups approach, testing, experimenting, trying to collect enough evidences that your business model will work. The idea is to reduce the risk. And as you are able to reduce the risk, you can put more and more money in your company. At the beginning, just for reduce the risk, you put some small amount of money. Then when you have reduced the risk enough here, you put more and more and more money. And then when you think that you have reduced the risk enough, you can launch. I choose an existing company just to show you that it's possible to play this game even for a big company. But the big company doesn't build or design and test one business model, but several ones. And here I choose Bosch. They created the Bosch Accelerator programs a couple of years ago to be able to play this startup game inside the company if you want. So they manage an export portfolio. And recently, in the last 3 years, they launched 19 new businesses. The question is, to be able to launch those 19 businesses, how many business projects they had in the last 3 years, because they killed some project, they changed, they pivoted somewhat. And I have a question for you, and you will use the chat window. My question is, how many innovation projects did Bosch initiate to enable the launch of those 19 businesses in the last 3 years? The numbers you can decide is 19, 43, 100, 200, 900. You can choose, and Vlad has already suggested 100 projects they launch. If you want some kinds of business ideas or startups ID, 214 for 𝐘𝐲, 100, 900. But they give them $100,000 for each of those projects at the beginning. So it's a huge amount of money. 200. Okay, only 10 out of 40 are able to have an idea. It's just a suggestion if you want. No more ideas. Okay, let me show you what they have done. In fact, they launched in total 240 and 14 teams. They give them 3 months and roughly $100,000. In fact, they accept in this process roughly between 20 and 30 teams every semester. So after 3 months, they have a second selection phase. And for the last 3 years, they have selected 74 teams. They give them 6 months and $300,000 to go further to reduce the risk by testing activities. So it means they killed 65 of those projects. Then they had a third phase, and they have accepted those 19 businesses they decided to launch as an independent business or inside an existing business units. So what's the lesson for us is it's a funnel, and you cannot pick the winners without investing in the losers. And you say, okay, that's for big companies. This is exactly the same numbers for startups. If you see some statistics or early stage venture capitalists and so on, you can see that we have only 1 out of 200, which is a very big success, 50 times what you have invested. But in 6 out of 10, you lose money. In 3 out of 10, you earn a kind of money. So the numbers for big companies and startups are roughly the same. Means that it's less than 10% success based on what you launch at the beginning. Okay. My second topic, but I will be very brief on this one, is it's clear that you need to have an idea, a strategic vision when you launch your startups or for an existing company. And based on this vision, who we are, you can give some portfolio guidance for the existing business model if you are an existing company, and for the new ones if you are a new company. And you have to decide in which arenas you accept to play, the financial performance you have in mind, the strategic key resource you want to acquire and to develop. I just choose the same example. Bracken Darrell has decided, I want to be the leading cloud peripheral player. I would like to revive the entrepreneurial mindset inside this company. And I will be to be perceived as a high-end design company by the customers and the different stakeholders. So it means that based on those ideas, he decided, and you have seen the different action he took for the existing business models. But for the new one,
to explain it, called trees, plants, and seeds. And trees, plants, and seeds was the really, really overly simplistic analogy that virtually any company that's been around for more than 10 years is doing, whether they talk to people in public about it or not. But this was mainly for us internally. So the tree was the big old tree, which was on its way to its deathbed, in my view. It's going to fall over and turn into lumber, was the PC peripherals business. The plants could be new businesses, and the seeds would be things we try to create that might be new businesses one day. It's really that simple. So we took 75% of the resources.
Okay, so they decided to reallocate 75% of the resources acquired in the exploit portfolio from all businesses to new growth opportunity. Means it's clearly the direction they want to take for the explore portfolio, playing the same game as a startup. That's here. I will focus a little bit on techniques that can be used by startups when they try to invent new business model. We will see afterwards what does it mean pivot or improve existing business model. So in the design technique that you can use, brainstorming, prototyping, and so on, one of the technique that architects also use, the architects can use, is design, pattern-based design, if you want. So what's a pattern? A pattern is a source of inspiration for creating new business models. And I have a questions, and you will use the chat window, and I will see what are your suggestions. My questions is, what do those 3 businesses, models have in common? Amazon Web Services is an existing company created by Amazon. Dyson used to be a startup, no, it's a big company for vacuum cleaners and so on. And Waze used to be, not so long time ago, startups to monitoring traffic jams and so on. So my question is, what do those 3 business models have in common? Completely different activity: informatics, objects, vacuum cleaner, and information technology based company. What they have in common? from a business model perspective? Type something. Suggestion. Okay, innovative. Okay, it's true for many companies. I focus on those 3 ones trying to, they are all child company. It's not true. Dyson was a new one, which was a startup acquired by a big company. Customer centric, could be. No more IDs. Okay. So for us, they are typical of resource castles. They created a competitive advantage with key resources that are difficult, impossible to copy. So the pattern in this case is mainly focused here. It's a key resources. And based on these resources, they have created a brand new, innovative value proposition, reaching some kind of customers with the revenue streams and so on. What are the examples? For Amazon Web Services, this resources was a sophisticated IT infrastructure they used to build for books and so on. Dyson is the pattern, the intellectual property. They spend 6 times more than their competitors for acquiring patents and developing new technology and so on. So clearly, it's the resources they have, and based on this one, they proposed vacuum cleaners and different stuff. And for waste, is a user community based on all the sales phone they have. It's possible with algorithm and data analytics to anticipate some traffic jam. So for patterns, we try to mainly focus on the blocks, which are the most important one. And we suggested a trigger questions. In this case, how could we make difficult to copy resources a key pillar of our business model? It's a question that you can ask when you launch a new company. And we developed what we called an invent patterns library with patterns related to the front stage, such as Market Explorer, Channel Kings, Gravity Creators. We will come back on one of them in a few moments. We have patterns focused on backstage, and I just briefly mentioned this pattern, Resource Castle. And we have some patterns which are more based on the revenue streams and the cost structure, and we call them revenue differentiators, cost differentiators, margin masters. And I will illustrate one of them, and you will participate with me. It's the Channel Kings. Means the Channel Kings, the focus is mainly on an innovative direct channel for reaching the customer. And the main blocks are the customers, the value propositions, and the relationship you try to maintain and to keep your customers. And the trigger question that you could have is, how could we increase market access and build strong direct channels to reach our end customers? And I will illustrate, and I will ask a question. And I will illustrate it with a company called Dollar Shave Club. The following video has been watched, I think, more than 30 million times in a couple of weeks, and we will see what they have done.
Hi, I'm Mike, founder of DollarShaveClub.com. What is DollarShaveClub.com? Well, for $1 a month, we send high-quality razors right to your door. Yeah, $1. Are the blades any good? No. Our blades are f***ing great. Each razor has stainless steel blades, an aloe vera lubricating strip, and a pivot head. It's so gentle a toddler could use it. And do you like spending $20 a month on brand name razors? 19 go to Roger Federer. I'm good at tennis. And do you think your razor needs a vibrating handle, a flashlight, a back scratcher, and 10 blades? Your handsome-ass grandfather had 1 blade and polio. Looking good, Pop-Up! Stop paying for shave tech you don't need. And stop forgetting to buy your blades every month. Alejandro and I are going to ship them right to you. We're not just selling razors, we're also making new jobs. Alejandro, what were you doing last month?
Not working.
What are you doing now?
Working.
I'm no Vanderbilt, but this train makes hay. So stop forgetting to buy your blades every month and start deciding where you're going to stack all those dollar bills I'm saving you. We are DollarShaveClub.com, and the party is on.
Okay, so now my question to you, and I will give you the business model canvas. How would you map out 𝐬𝐻 business model, which was startups a couple of years ago, using the channel King's pattern? It's a nice illustration of this pattern. So here you have the business model canvas. You have the patterns, which is mainly focused, as we have seen on this part. Okay. Then here, the value proposition is affordable men's shaving products, mainly for mass men market. Okay. Here on the left-hand side, I'm giving you 6 sticky notes: direct relationship, innovative marketing, viral videos that you have seen, that you can still see on YouTube, online store, customized subscription, and brand. Then I put some numbers on just some blocks, not all of them. Okay, you can see here the channel, the relationship, the revenue streams, the activity, key activities, and the resources. My question, you try to put the sticky notes at the right place. And so you will write down in the chat window the full sequence of the 6 letters matching the numbers. Okay, so you try to see the letters corresponding to 1, the letters corresponding to 2, to 3, to 4, to 5. And so at the end, you will have 6 letters, A, B, C, D, E, F, that you will type in the chat window. And I will give you 2 minutes for doing it. You have the watch here. Okay, try to see exactly which one will correspond to which blocks if you want. And you have the name of the blocks. Okay, launch. Okay, no, you have 2 minutes trying to see what are the matching and put the right 6 letters inside the chat window. Thank you. We will see who will be the first. It's a game, so wake up, please. 6 letters. Normally, after 1 minute, we could have the first answers coming. 𝐤𝐸𝐾𝐬, yes, we will answer the questions normally. I will come back on this other example also. Resource casting. Okay, type the 6 letters. Okay, hey, time to wake up. Come with 6 letters that you have to type in the chat window. Please, come on. Okay, good. 𝐶𝐴DEB, 𝐶ADEF by Hoinam, Nguyen, and Cantran. Okay, it's coming. Good, great. Only 4 so far, 5. So it's coming. Okay, a couple of seconds more. Just to see if, okay, Kim, just 1 letter. Please type the 5 one or the 6 one. Yes, ABD. Okay, good, 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 good. Let me see. Solution CD, AEBS. Why? The main channel for reaching the customers was first the online store to buy on e-commerce, but also the viral videos is a channel. It's a channel because they wanted to reach directly the customers, but this startup didn't exist at that time. So they had to try mechanisms to be aware of the existence of this company. So the viral videos was the awareness channels, and the online store is the channel for ordering the product. The relationship is a direct relationship. They wanted to have this, avoiding to pass by a Procter & Gamble or a Walmart or the big retailers and so on. And the revenue stream was a subscription. Okay, so every month you pay something and you receive by the mail office, the post office, excuse me, the different products. For doing it, they had to create the main activity was innovative marketing. Okay, and the cost-related viral video marketing costs. Why? Because they had to acquire customers, and we will see the numbers in a few moments. And they were able, in front of Gillette and so on, to create a brand. And it's clear that they have also an IT infrastructure, the e-commerce platform and so on. That's the reason why we say this is roughly a high vision of the business model of this company. And they were quite lucky. In a couple of years, they were able to keep 69% of the customers they have acquired because of this relationship. So it's huge. The retention rate was so huge that after 3 years, they have been acquired by a big company, Unilever, in 2016. It's a nice example of what we call a channel king patterns. For all of those patterns, as you have seen, we have a trigger question to help people to create new business model. But for all of them, we have also an assessment questions, which is a way of assessing a business model that you have designed for startups, for example. Do we have large scale, ideally direct access to our end customers, and you can decide if you are good, such as in this case, Dollar Shave Club, or less good if you are another. And so we have 9 questions that you could use for evaluate, for assessing your existing business model. This is just an illustration briefly with one of those 9 ones, and the second one, you remember, I also briefly presented the resource castle pattern. We will come back because I've seen that we have questions related to this one. It's not enough, because even if you launch the company, maybe it's time to change this business model, because in front of the environment, when you execute, you have some problems, or if you want to pivot. So the techniques I will briefly mention here could be used for existing business model or for a business model that you want to change. We call those shift patterns. So it's mainly done for improving business model, but it's also true for shifting business model. And we call those shift patterns, mean that you have an existing one, okay, the business model you have designed, or the business model you execute. And here you have the new one that you will launch or execute. And in the same way as we have done it for the patterns, we have created a library. Okay, some patterns related to the value proposition, from product to service, from low tech to high tech. Think, for example, Netflix. At the beginning, they launched CDs by the post office, and now they switched a couple of years ago to online streaming, from low tech to high tech, from sales to platform. We have some shift mainly based on the front stage, from niche to market, from B2B to B2C, and so on. Backstage, from dedicated to multi-usage resources. I will not visit. I just pick one of them, from product to service. You remember my Hilti example at the beginning. It was an existing company, it's clear. But what they have seen, because of the previous crisis, the finance crisis in 2008, the annual revenue dropped by more than 30%. Big crisis. So what they decide to do at that time, to trying to adapt, to change, to pivot the business model.
Have you ever wanted to just focus on your work and forget about administrative issues and managing your tool fleet? If so, Tool Fleet Management, Hilti's long-term tool usage service, is for you. We take care of your tools while you focus on the job. Hilti helps assure that your team will have the best tools, each unique and labeled using RFID and an inventory number, so you can maintain control of your tool fleet. If something breaks down, no problem. Hilti has another way to make your work easier. We repair or replace your tools quickly at no additional cost. 𝐤𝐸 will also update your tools on a regular basis, always with the latest generation models. All this on a single monthly invoice. This will seem incredible to you, but the benefits don't end there. The more you choose 𝐤𝐸, the more 𝐤𝐸 services benefit you, like Tools on Demand, 𝐤𝐸's new service reserved for customers with at least 10 tools. Now you can put high-performing 𝐤𝐸 tools to work when and where you need them. We call it Tools on Demand. You'll call it smart.
Okay, so what they have done, it used to be a company manufacturing selling, and they decided to switch towards a service-based company based on a subscription. So initially, it was a manufacturing selling. This is the business model they have explored for a couple of years, and they pivoted, they transform it, they improve it, adopting this idea of online tool fleet management systems for logistics managers. And here you have the CEO of the company, and he said the big benefit of this recurring service revenues help us to stabilize, in fact, increase our business during the after the financial crisis. At that time, most contractors wouldn't purchase new equipment. So that's the reason why they pivoted the business model. And you can see here the progression of their annual revenues. They were much more above what they had in 2009 because they switched from this product towards services business model. Fine. Here I will come back a little bit more for existing companies such as 𝐤𝐸 or medium company. There are myths inside companies. Most of the time, existing executives, managers believe that the challenge in innovation is to find the right idea, execute the plan, check the results, avoid failure, predict the future based on the past. And I think the problem is some entrepreneurs also believe in such behaviors, if you want. But I think this one is good for executing, for exploiting, for managing businesses, but not for exploring you, as entrepreneurs have to do. And so I will briefly mention what we have in mind when we develop this idea of innovation culture readiness. We use a tool that we developed, I think, 3 years ago with Dave Gray, what we call the culture map. A culture map, we try to see to be explicit on the behaviors you want to have inside your company, the outcomes that you would like to have or that you are expecting, and the blockers and enablers. Let me tell you before that it's not possible to decide this kind of thing. You can just decide which kind of blockers you want to remove or which kind of enablers you would like to add. It's exactly the same as gardening. Okay, why? Because if you want to have flowers, it's just because you have the right seeds, waters, fertilizers, that after a couple of weeks or year or month, you will have nice flowers. So it means that here you can decide, you can design, here you can observe what you will have in a couple of time. And we use this time for briefly define what we have in mind for having a nice innovation culture inside your company. The kind of behaviors you would like to have is, or that you would like to observe in your company, eagerness to invent and pioneer, which is always true for entrepreneurs. People choose innovation as a career path, or in big companies, most of the time it's a career suicide. And to have a systematic measurements of risk reduction, always focused on risk. Disruption risk for existing company or innovation risk if you are startups. Outcomes that you would like to expect. If you have this kind of behaviors, okay, you will be maybe more resilient to change and disruption. And you will be able to attract and to retain and to leverage your innovation talents inside your company. Having a good team if you are a startup, having good managers if you are an existing company. And you will be able maybe to reduce this innovation risk if you are startups or the disruption risk if you are an existing companies. But most of the time, the companies, young or old, have some blockers. One of the big one is they are focused on the short-term quarterly financial numbers. The fear of failure for existing company, it's absolutely true. For startups, sometimes most of them are less reluctant, if you want, to this fear of failure. But it's a blocker in some situation. And also to adopt some execution KPIs related to the financial numbers, processes, or customer satisfaction. But you have no revenue if you are a startup. You have no customers. So it's not possible to measure satisfaction. You have to use different techniques related to these testing activities that I briefly mentioned. So the idea for companies is to remove those blockers, and maybe to replace them by what we call enablers. Okay, and those enablers are related to, we need to have a strong leadership support. We need maybe to adopt new ways of organizing your company and to adopt new tools. Okay, let me visit briefly some of them. So first, we need to give some good guidance, having a good vision or good intuition, and to communicate this. And we need to give money to exploration and to manage the portfolio if you are big companies. That's first. Here at the org design, it's not enough to give money. You need also to give legitimacy and power to the people in charge of innovation inside your organization. And if you are an existing company, you need to make the bridge between the existing business models and the new ones that you would like to develop, and to change the rewarding incentive. It's not possible to give a bonus to people just based on execution. If you want that they will be creative, innovative, exploring new ventures, it means that you need to find new ways of helping them to survive or to grow, even at the salary level of compensation. And finally, managing an existing business and creating new businesses requires two different sets of skills, competencies, and so on. So it means that you need to adopt new innovation tools such as business model canvas, lean startups, and so on, new processes, and maybe new skills that you need to have to be creative, to be innovative, to be entrepreneurs or intrapreneurs. Let me ask you a last question, because at the beginning, I think the organizers told me there will be some leaders in the room or some people coming from existing companies. It's less true for entrepreneurs. My question to you is, how much time does your seniors leadership, such as CEOs, boss, and so on, spend on innovation every week? And if you are CEO of your company, try to see your agenda and to see last week I spent how much? 2 days, between 1 and 2 days, less than 1 day, maybe less than half day per week. Okay, it's clear that as an entrepreneur, everybody say more than 50%, you are 100% maybe focused on your startup. But if you work for a startup which is maybe 2 or 3 years old, what do you think about your CEOs? And if you are CEO yourself? So have you an idea? And if you have no idea, make a guess and you say, oh, it seems that for existing company, it could be 50%, or try to type some numbers, 50 or, okay, less than 10%, more on firefighting by 𝐤𝐬𝐏𝐢𝐠𝐬, 45%, 10%, guess 50%, yeah, maybe more than 50, 10, 20, okay. You know, we ask those questions to senior leadership and to some people working for existing company, much less for startups, I agree. You know, 70% spend less than 10%, means only 2-3 hours per week on innovation. And you have only 7% of the CEOs in companies, and it's based on tons of surveys we have done with Alex. So the question is, do you think that it's possible to have an ambidextrous CEO? Means a CEO which is good for managing the company, but also good in exploring new businesses for replacing the declining businesses that you could have in exploitation. We have seen some of them, and I mentioned Bracken Darrow, and we had some contact with him last year. He spent between 40 and 60% of his time on innovation, means between 2, 3, sometimes 4 days, focus on new businesses he wants to create for the future. But in most of the company, as you have seen, it's not possible. So we suggested with Alex a couple of years ago to have what we call a chief entrepreneur. What does it mean? It means we have a CEO in charge of the present, okay, so exploitation, and a people chief entrepreneur, a lady or man, which is in charge of the future, creating the next business model for replacing the new one. With the same power, and maybe on top here, you have the chairman or you have the board. 5 years ago, when we suggested this, he said, most of the people say it's difficult to have 2 bosses. Okay, but we have seen some company, and one of them is close to your country, is Ping An, used to be an insurance company. They spend a lot of money for creating a new innovative engine based on information technology in healthcare, fintech, automobile industry with huge successes. And they have 2 co-CEOs. And we have seen some of them. I stop here. And this lady, 𝐤𝐸𝐾𝐬 𝐏𝐸𝐿, which created this innovative engine, managing this exploration portfolio, said risk-taking is strongly encouraged and failure is unstigmatized. They have a true startups mindset, but also they manage the insurance company. We have a questionnaire here. You can download it to check if you are ready to innovation. And if you have your phone, you can use this QR code to directly download this innovation readiness framework. And it's your homework to use it as a way of assessing your innovation inside your company. So what we have done, covering those one mainly for startups, those one may be more related to existing company. Thank you. Let me give you in the last minute we have here something just to mention. Preparing the future is always complicated. And here you have a nice quote. Prediction is very difficult, especially if it's about the future. It's a joke. You have different techniques. You have experts in forecasting and prevision and so on, consultant, but be careful. It's very complicated to read the future. And it's a French joke.
Alors, Jean-Fabien, vous êtes voyant, n'est-ce pas? Exactement, je prévois l'avenir. Et celle-là, hein, tu l'as prévue celle-là? Vous voyez, Jules Edouard, pas besoin de long débat pour démystifier les charlatans.
Thank you. Ready for the question.
So so now we start taking the question from the participant. Well, first of all, I like to thank you for the last 1 hour. A lot of strong keyword that stuck in my mind. One is the innovation.
Yeah.
I heard innovation. You say about shift of mind, change it, yeah. Switch. So all the keyword related to the innovation. Then the other thing that come up to my mind was it's a challenging time when the current business owner, CEO, they must do on one hand all the firefighting, and on the other hand with all the exploration. Correct. And it's very exciting to see that in some of the play you see, you have like Ping An, you have 2 very clear positions differently. Yeah. Right. So one is just entrepreneur, chief entrepreneur, and the other one managing the existing business. So lovely. Thank you so much. Now we start taking the question from the audience.
Yeah.
We see we see somebody, Nora Chung. The person asked, Nora asked, what are the challenges when applying this business model canvas in real life? How do you address this?
You know, okay, it's a tool, so you can use it as you want. So, But if I would be in charge of all startups, I used to be here on the campus, or no, with a big existing company, you need to manage what we call, or to run, if you want, a kind of innovation sprint. So it means you spend roughly a couple of days to design your business model, to come with some prototypes and to assess your business model, maybe inside the building, inside the incubators. And then you will spend maybe a couple of weeks testing your ideas, testing your business model. Okay, you have an hypothesis that you have detected based on the business model canvas. Then you create some experiments, you launch those experiments, you collect feedback from the customers, you try to have what we call a call to action to see if the customers are engaged. And then based on this one, you can change, you can to revise your business model, or you can continue with more sophisticated tests. And those one could take roughly 12 weeks, I would say, even for big companies trying to create a new one, such as we have seen with Bosch, but also with startups. And here, on our campus, we try to apply this one. In one semester, we try to have at least tested maybe 10, 12 hypotheses, and to have collected the feedback from at least hundreds of customers with different techniques. And we have some techniques in our toolbox. Interview is the simplest one, but it's not the most sophisticated one, because what people say and what they do is two different things. So you try to come with some more sophisticated things like letter of intent, pre-sales, mock sales, and so on. And based on this one, you can confirm that your business model is potentially good, you have reduced the risk or not. And I think it's especially true for startups. Avoiding to put too much money at the beginning.
Right. So, what we heard from you just now is the test. Allow some time, some resource to test. Right. Thank you. We have a few more questions here. Excited. I see a question for me as well, but I'd like you to answer first. If
sure, go.
Right. So the next question is, how do we review the business model and change them? What is the key element to help the business survive in the VUCA's world?
It's exactly, I think it's the same answer if you want, is testing. So it means that you have a business model. It has been created in your mind or inside the mind of the teams, if you are the team members. It's like you think that you will make money with this business model. But if you launch and it doesn't work, it's a pity. If you have an existing business model and you see that you have less customers, less revenues, and so on, the problem is there. So it's normal that you will change something. So first testing and trying to anticipate some risk. And when you launch, to observe the environment and to see how your business model could evolve. And then you decide to improve, to change, to pivot, to transform. So I think, as you mentioned, I think at the beginning, Nam, is agility. You need to be agile. And I think one of the main things that we have seen as a characteristics of Invincible Company, you are able to reinvent yourself, or at the beginning when you are startups, or even when you are an existing company, you launch them, to stay agile. Because even if you had a good idea, it's not possible to keep the same business model for life. At the beginning, it works well. And then after you say, oh, problem. So you need to change something. And you need to take care of the evolution of your business model. I think it's a good lesson, both for startups, but also for existing companies. It's not so easy to do it.
Right. Okay. So if I have so many questions come in, and then one question text to my mobile phone and ask for a very important question to be prioritized. Right. So the question is, two questions. What is the success rates of having two CEOs in the company, like what you just described? And if my company doesn't have the budget for two CEOs, how much time per week is needed for a CEO of the innovative thinking exercise?
Yeah. But let me see. I will just show you something. The right number, I'm not sure to have it is clear. We didn't launch a survey for doing it. Let me share the screen with you, because I've seen also a question. Could you give me another example of a resource castle company? And I will reply to those two questions together.
Right. Okay. That question from Kim Wong.
Very briefly, something here.
So while we're waiting for Yves to put up the slide, I like to talk to all the participants. Please be calm. We try to answer all the questions. If not, we'll surely find a way to reach you. Okay, don't worry.
Okay, I choose Laurastar. Laurastar is a very small company here in Switzerland, but it's very good in manufacturing and selling irons, so ironing. And they launched during the crisis a new device, 𝐤𝐸𝐞𝐬 steamers with a completely different business models. What's 𝐤𝐸𝐿? Let me show you briefly in 15 seconds.
I steam and purify all your fabrics. With my ultra-powerful dry microfine steam, I instantly steam your clothing.
Okay, removing viruses and so on. What's the evolution of their business model? You can see here on the top here, the business model they had was ironing. But in the last couple of years, they have seen this business model declining because the young generations irons less than before. What they have done, they have explored as a startups, new business model, subscription-based, intermediation business model, data-driven. They tested those business models. They decided to kill because it didn't work based on the test with the customers. And they explored this new one a couple of years ago, maybe 2-3 years ago. And during the crisis, they tested a lot this business model, this new business model, okay? And they were able to show that this idea of purifying and 𝐤𝐸𝐞𝐬 steamers and so on. Why? Because they had the resources, which is called steam technology, which is a dry vapor with good characteristics for removing bacteria and viruses and so on. And so they launched during the crisis last year, huge success. And they have two CEOs, Julie and Michael. Okay. So it's a nice example. And they had these solutions for the last 5 years. I'm not able to give you, as you mentioned, the salaries and so on. But I think the result is more important to have two salaries because one could be in charge of creating new, and the other one is more in charge of exploiting, executing, managing the current businesses. Because you need to be good at both. Yes.
Okay, thank you. If there's a question from the young man, Phạm Nguyễn Khôi Nguyên, he asked two questions. There are tests and failures. So is there any good ratio or goal ratio in number of successful business models? That's question number one. Number two, how can we handle the unexpected event like pandemic to have our model to be stronger?
No, but I think I will take this one. Pandemic is an atomic bomb crisis. We've never seen so complicated situation. So it's clear that for some businesses, think aviation or hotels, restaurants, and so on, event-based businesses, terrible crisis. So no recipe to say, you have to do this one. You remember my last joke at the end? It's not possible to say, if we do this, we will recover and so on. The thing is, again, agility. We have seen some companies, I just mentioned Laurastar, they were able to be agile, to say, we have this crisis, we have seen something declining, it could be possible to take advantage of this one for creating a new businesses. And they changed completely the business model for this one because you don't sell the 𝐤𝐸𝐞𝐬 steamers to the same customers, okay? They try to target hospital, target houses for elder people and so on. So they change something. And so this agility, I think, is the main lesson. But agility is easier for some businesses and much more complicated for some others. If in Belgium, the restaurants have been closed 9 months. So it's not possible to say you have to be agile. They try to do something, to have home delivery or to have some special events where it was possible to sell food in the street. But I think it's complicated. So the idea is to be agile, trying to evolve, to improve, to pivot some business model. Okay, but the tool itself is not the solution. The business model canvas is just a way of telling the story, or you create value for your business. And okay, so the tool is not the lesson. I think the lesson here is agility and using techniques such as testing and so on, which is not the mainstream in the business. Okay, most of the time, managers in charge of managing the business are not aware of the different techniques you can use for exploring new business models, even during the crisis. So it means that you need not necessarily to have two CEOs, but at least two different teams, one which is a little bit outside mainstream inside your company, inside some incubators or innovation centers and so on, trying to have this entrepreneurial mindset, trying to push some and to create some idea. But the difficulty, I agree with you, since you lose money in the existing business model because of the crisis, is always complicated to find money. But you can see on the market, like the VC market, the venture capitalist market, money is there. Money is very often not the problem, because there are money on the market. Okay, so and again, I would like to avoid to give lessons. No, it's not my role. I say, okay, I'm a tool creator with Alex. Okay, here are a set of tools, a set of techniques. Please try to adopt those tools, to use it, to transform it. And I would like to avoid to, I know where the future is going, I know how to do it, and so on. And I think in management, that it doesn't exist recipes. I think it's the genius of the people in charge of the company or the young entrepreneurs to launch something. But you can see during this crisis, we have seen some startups, even here on our campus, launching, scaling up and so on. So I think it's possible to, the crisis didn't kill all the businesses in the world, but for some of them, it's more complicated than for some others. Agree, fully agree. Yes.
Right. So what I hear is business model canvas is a tool.
Correct.
For us to use. So you are not here to give the recipe, the formula, no. Right? So it's up to us to try, test, experiment, and learn from that, right?
Yeah. Tools and techniques, maybe. And you know, those techniques. Thing, for example, is not so common. So we need maybe to train people to use those techniques. And we have a collection of 40 different techniques for testing business model, testing value proposition. And you remember at the beginning, the lean startups phenomena created by Steve Blank was just an idea, a process, an approach. And we try to refine the techniques which are able to use for creating for testing, excuse me, new business model. Okay, let's go for the next one.
Right. So Yves, I think you can take a cup of coffee for 2-minute break while I'm asking the question that directly to me. So we have a question from perhaps Miss Talia Pham asks, how do I apply the business model canvas for a startup like my startup, the 𝐘𝐯𝐿?
So for what?
For my startup, a 𝐘𝐯𝐿 startup, a 𝐘𝐯𝐿 company. So if you let me explain.
Exactly, that's to you. Okay, good.
So you see me as a student, okay?
Yeah, sure.
What I learned from you in the last 60 minutes. So Talia, dear Talia, so I like to pick what Yves said just a few minutes ago. Actually, in the last 60 minutes, the term test and learn. And for us, if I look at the business model canvas, we have, perhaps you know, right? We have 9 blocks to consider in this tool as a symbol business plan for all of us. So for us, the 𝐘𝐯𝐿, a coaching and consulting company, I think when we first launched, we focused very much on a the first two blocks. Who are our customers and what is our value proposition? Because we just launched, we didn't have time to focus on the whole 9 blocks. We just do on the first 2 things. And I tell you, I'm very glad to hear what Yves said today. It is exactly what we experiment. When we first launched, the client that come to me, to us, are all over the world, the place. We have parents, we have students, we have new manager, we have director, we have CEO. So with all kind of issue. But as we move on, we experiment. So we narrow down. We have a feeling of how do we do well? What do we do well? What do we do best? With which segment? So at the moment, our targeted segment is that all the business owner or startup who are very successful in the last few years and who have a bigger dream, but they face challenge. So that is where we arrive at after a few months of experiment. So this exactly come back to Yves' theory: test and learn, define, keep going. So that is the targeted customer of our 𝐘𝐯𝐿, or the business owner, or the CEO and their leader, and all the big dreamer who want to achieve the bigger dream. So that is the targeted customer. So once we have that, we understand their pain point, and then we go to our value proposition. What do we offer at 𝐘𝐯𝐿? So here, for example, me with the corporate experience and with my real life story of the startup, I've gone through all the pain, the successes, the failures of all this in the big world, small world. So with all that, I provide a bigger perspective for the people, for my client. I tell them the blind spots. I work with them, I partner with them. We refresh the vision, the strategy. We look at the mindset. Oh, by the way, I like your slides. Some of your slides, you talk about some of the limiting beliefs. It's excellent. So some of us, including me, have so many limiting beliefs. And it's our job now to partner with our client to address those mindset, and then skill set, and then energy. So we tell our client where to focus, where to give absolute focus, so that they can have the good energy to focus on the whole thing. So that is just 2 blocks. If I refer to the 9 block of the business canvas model that we are working on, and the point I want to say here is the business canvas model of by Yves here is just a tool. It's a great tool. It's the simplest tool that I have ever seen. But how to use it, it is up to us. I'm not sure I answered that.
I fully agree with what you mentioned. It's a nice example, and I like it. So yeah. And also one thing, you know, business model canvas is a nice tool, but we have also decided that one tool is not enough. Because if you are, for example, surgery, and you say the surgeon will operate with a Swiss knife, you say, wow, no, he has a lot of different tools for doing something specialized. That's the reason why we came with this idea that, okay, it's a toolbox. We need to have different tools depending on what you want to do. Okay, so the canvas is one, the value proposition canvas is another one, the culture map is one. So it's a toolbox, and the idea is to use this toolbox, as you mentioned, with the ability to use it, you want to create something new, you want to experiment, you want to have enough evidences that it will work, you want to reduce the risk before launching, and so on. Fully agree. Nice example for 𝐘𝐯𝐿.
So Yves, it's really exciting. Our time is just up. We really run out of time, right, Mia?
Yeah, actually we ran out of time like 5 minutes ago, but I don't want to like cut off here, because like when I heard like Nam share about his business to you, it's actually like, as I mentioned before, that I studied these models like in my university, but now when I listen like directly to you, and like it's really come to the practical things that I'm in the business right now, So I can easily like use and apply for it. More than before, like more than when I'm in the university. So thank you so much for today. It's really the meaningful sections that I hope that everyone enjoy it. So last but not least, let me share a little bit from here. So as like we still continue for the employee experience monthly global expert chat, like Mr. Yves, we would love to invite like the global experts to come and to share their experience to the HR community and business leader communities in Vietnam. So next week on Thursday, we will have like the next EX monthly global expert chat with Mr. Richard Pollard with the topics of Work Smart Now. He is the official member at FOC, Human Resources Council, and also the authors of the book Work Smart Now. So they so he can share with you how to like create a productivity environment for for your employee to like still have fun but still creative, still productive, still innovative. So combine everything together. So thank you so much for today. But if you have any questions, so feel free to inbox me or like connect me on LinkedIn so I can directly like give that questions to Mr. Yves or Mr. Nam so they can like answer you. So thank you so much for today, Mr. Yves and Mr. Nam.
Thank you for your invitation. It was a great pleasure to be with you. And so
thank you
to Nam.
To all the participants, please stay safe, stay healthy. Wish you well. Okay, yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mia.
Thank you.
So much.
Thank you, all my friends. Bye-bye.